These are 10 legendary British manufacturers that once ruled the world have vanished forever, taking with them millions of jobs and the pride of a nation. Did you know that Britain once produced more motorcycles than Japan, more computers than America could imagine, and cars that even the Queen herself preferred? But here's the shocking truth. We threw it all away through a toxic cocktail of mismanagement, government interference, and breathtaking incompetence. Today, we're diving into the spectacular collapses and untold stories of Britain's greatest industrial disasters. Prepare yourself for some uncomfortable truths about how Britain lost its manufacturing crown. Where do we even begin with British Leyland? This wasn't just a company collapse, it was industrial suicide on a scale that makes other failures look minor. Formed in 1968 through a government-orchestrated merger, British Leyland brought together Austin, Morris, Rover, Triumph and Jaguar under one catastrophically dysfunctional roof. At its peak, this behemoth employed over 170,000 people and controlled 40% of the British car market. Here's something your dad probably remembers. The company suffered over 500 strikes between 1969 and 1975. Derek "Red Robbo" Robinson, the infamous shop steward, became the face of industrial chaos, eventually being fired in 1979 for leading unofficial walkouts. The Longbridge plant alone lost 62,000 cars worth of production in 1977 due to strikes. Meanwhile, Toyota was perfecting lean manufacturing and eating our lunch. The real tragedy? They had brilliant designs. The Mini, created by Alec Isagonis, revolutionized small car design with its transverse engine layout that's still used today. The Range Rover invented the luxury SUV segment in 1970. The Jaguar XJ6 was arguably the world's best luxury saloon. But chronic underinvestment meant factories using Victorian-era equipment, while competitors built state-of-the-art facilities. Management incompetence reached legendary levels. The Austin Allegro and Morris Marina competed against each other for the same customers. They had 5 different dealer networks selling overlapping products. Quality control was so poor that Friday car entered the language, meaning a car built badly because workers wanted to get to the pub. By 1975, the government had to nationalise the company to prevent total collapse. They pumped in £2.4 billion, about £20 billion today, over the next decade. The patient finally died in 1986, when it was broken up and sold off. Jaguar went to Ford, Land Rover eventually to Tata, and the volume car business simply vanished. Rover's story reads like a Shakespearean tragedy: noble birth, glorious middle years, and an utterly pathetic death. Founded in 1878 as a bicycle manufacturer, Rover became synonymous with British middle-class respectability. The Queen Mother's P5 became the government's official car. Prime ministers from Harold Wilson to Margaret Thatcher were driven in Rovers. Even the police used Rover SD1s to chase villains. The company pioneered gas turbine cars in the 1950s and developed the Land Rover in 1948, which became Britain's most successful export after whiskey. But after being absorbed into British Leyland, Rover became a football pass between increasingly desperate owners. British Aerospace bought it in 1988 for £150 million, discovered they knew nothing about cars, and sold it to BMW in 1994 for £800 million. Nice work if you can get it. BMW invested £3 billion trying to revive Rover, developing the excellent 75 saloon. But they discovered what BAE already knew. Rover was hemorrhaging money faster than a Vegas slot machine. In 2000, BMW practically gave Rover away for £10 to 4 Birmingham businessmen called the Phoenix Consortium. Here's where it gets properly scandalous. The Phoenix Four, John Towers, Peter Beale, John Edwards and Nick Stevenson, promised to save Rover. Instead, they paid themselves £42 million in salaries and pensions over 5 years while the company died. They even set up a trust fund in Guernsey to handle their pension payments. Meanwhile, 6,000 workers lost their jobs with statutory minimum redundancy. The final insult came with the City Rover in 2003, a terrible Indian-built Tata Indica with a Rover badge slapped on it. By April 2005, Rover was dead. The Longbridge factory that once employed 27,000 people became a shopping centre. MG's intellectual property went to China, where they still build MG cars today. If you're fascinated by these forgotten stories of British industrial glory and catastrophe, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Coming up, I'll reveal how BSA executives literally handed their motorcycle designs to visiting Honda engineers, essentially training their own executioners. Plus, the extraordinary story of the jet airliner that beat Boeing by years only to fall from the sky. Birmingham Small Arms Company's transformation from weapons manufacturer to motorcycle giant is remarkable. Founded in 1861 to make rifles, BSA armed the British Empire. During World War II, they produced 468,098 Lee Enfield rifles, 404,383 Sten guns, and 126,334 Browning machine guns. Post-war, they cleverly pivoted to motorcycles, becoming the world's largest manufacturer by 1955, producing 75,000 bikes annually. The Gold Star single-cylinder remains legendary among enthusiasts. Launched in 1938, it dominated racing throughout the 1950s. The DBD34 version could reach 110 miles per hour. Extraordinary for a 500cc single. BSA's Bantam, based on a pre-war German DKW design obtained as war reparations, taught millions of Britons to ride. They sold over 500,000 Bantams between 1948 and 1971. But BSA's management suffered from fatal arrogance. When Japanese manufacturers visited Birmingham factories in the early 1960s, BSA executives viewed them as no threat. They freely shared technical information, believing British engineering superiority was unassailable. Honda's CB 750, launched in 1969, proved them catastrophically wrong. It was faster, more reliable, and cheaper than anything BSA produced. Internal conflicts destroyed the company from within. BSA owned Triumph, but ran them as competitors rather than collaborators. They developed separate engines, separate dealer networks, and separate racing teams. Edward Turner, Triumph's legendary designer, actively sabotaged BSA projects he saw as threats to Triumph. This infighting occurred while Honda unified their operations globally. Financial mismanagement compounded engineering failures. BSA lost £3.2 million in 1971, £4.8 million in 1972. The government-orchestrated merger with Norton Villiers created Norton Villiers Triumph in 1973, but this simply combined three dying companies into one larger corpse. The doors finally closed in 1978. Today, India's Mahindra owns the BSA name, planning an electric motorcycle revival. The Birmingham factory is now a supermarket. Norton's original incarnation epitomised British motorcycle engineering at its best and worst. James Lansdowne Norton founded the company in 1898, initially making bicycle chains. By the 1920s, Norton dominated racing, winning the inaugural Isle of Man TT in 1907. Their racing success continued through the 1950s, with Jeff Duke winning multiple world championships on the legendary Manx Norton. The Commando, launched in 1967, showcased British innovation. Its isolastic rubber mounting system isolated the engine vibration from the frame, solving the traditional British parallel twin shake. Contemporary road tests praised its handling and 115 miles per hour top speed. The combat engine version produced 65 brake horsepower, matching larger Japanese bikes. Production reached 15,000 units annually by 1971, making it Britain's best-selling large motorcycle. Yet Norton couldn't overcome fundamental problems. Quality control remained abysmal. Oil leaks were standard, electrical systems failed regularly, and the kickstart mechanism could break riders' ankles if it backfired. While Japanese bikes came with electric start, disc brakes, and 5-speed gearboxes as standard, Norton charged extra for these luxuries. The Commando's main bearings required adjustment every 2,000 miles. Japanese bikes ran 20,000 miles without service. Government intervention prolonged the agony. Dennis Poor's attempts to merge Norton with BSA Triumph created Norton Villiers Triumph in 1973. The Wolverhampton factory closure in 1975 led to a workers' sit-in. The government-funded Meriden Cooperative continued limited production until 1977, when receivers were called in. The Norton name refused to die. Various entrepreneurs bought the rights, producing small numbers of rotary-engined bikes for police forces. Stuart Garner acquired Norton in 2008, promising revival, but was later convicted of pension fraud in 2022, having illegally invested £11 million of pension funds into his failing business. TVS of India now owns Norton, producing bikes in Solihull. The brand survives, but the original company's DNA vanished decades ago. Herbert Austin's 7 motorised Britain, like Henry Ford's Model T, motorised America. Launched in 1922, the 7 was revolutionary, affordable, reliable and simple enough for owners to maintain. By 1939, Austin had sold 290,000 7s. Licensed production in Germany as the Dixie, Japan, Datsun's first car, and France, Rosengart, spread Austin's influence globally. The company's Longbridge plant became Europe's largest factory, covering 370 acres. Austin's post-war success continued with the A40, Britain's first true hatchback in 1958. The Austin Healey sports cars conquered America. The Mini, though credited to BMC, was developed at Longbridge by Austin engineers. Austin held 37% of the British market in 1955. Employment peaked at 22,000 workers, producing 200,000 vehicles annually. The 1968 British Leyland merger destroyed Austin's identity. Badge engineering reached absurd levels. The Austin Maxi, Morris Marina, and Austin Allegro competed for identical customers. The Allegro became Britain's most mocked car. Its quartic steering wheel, neither round nor square, symbolised management's disconnection from reality. Harrisman's original design featured a sleek hatchback. Cost-cutting produced a lumpen saloon with terrible aerodynamics. Build quality was appalling. Panel gaps varied by inches, not millimetres. Management knew the problems but pressed ahead. Internal testing revealed the Allegro was slower, less economical and handled worse than the 1100 it replaced. The Hydriga suspension shared with Rolls-Royce should have provided magic carpet ride quality. Instead, poor implementation created a bouncing, seasick-inducing experience. Rust protection was virtually non-existent. Allegros dissolved in British weather like sugar cubes in tea. Austin's death came gradually. The marque disappeared from cars in 1987, though commercial vehicles continued until 1989. The final insult. Nanjing Automobile of China bought Austin's intellectual property in 2005. They briefly produced Austin-branded cars for the Chinese market. Britain's People's Car Company became Chinese property. Triumph motorcycles and rock and roll were inseparable. Marlon Brando rode a Thunderbird in The Wild One. James Dean owned one, Elvis had several. Steve McQueen's attempted escape in The Great Escape on a TR6 trophy, painted to look German, remains cinema's greatest motorcycle chase. The Bonneville, named after setting speed records at Utah's Salt Flats, became the definitive British motorcycle. Founded in 1902 by two Germans, Siegfried Bettmann and Maurice Schulter, Triumph ironically became quintessentially British. The Speed Twin, launched in 1937, created the parallel twin template every British manufacturer copied. During World War II, Triumph supplied 50,000 motorcycles to Allied forces. The Coventry factory, destroyed in the Blitz, relocated to Meriden, beginning that site's significant history. The 1960s were golden years. Triumph sold 50,000 bikes annually, mostly to America. The Trophy 650 dominated American desert racing. The Trident Triple, launched in 1968, was arguably superior to Honda's CB 750, but arrived too late and too expensive. Production quality remained inconsistent. Some Triumphs ran forever, others leaked oil from day one. Industrial relations destroyed the original company. The 1973 Meriden factory occupation lasted 18 months. Workers, fearing closure, locked out management and attempted running the factory as a cooperative. The Labour government, desperate to save jobs, provided £4.2 million in funding. The cooperative limped along, producing perhaps 20 bikes weekly versus 350 at peak production. Quality inevitably suffered when workers were simultaneously assemblers, managers, and salesmen. Liquidation came in 1983. Licensed production continued at Les Harris's Devon factory, building 14 bikes annually to maintain trademark rights. John Bloor bought the name for £150,000, spent 5 years studying Japanese methods, then built an entirely new company. Today's Triumph, producing 65,000 bikes annually in Thailand, shares only the name with the original. The Meriden factory is now a housing estate. What's coming next will astound you. The British company that created the world's first jet airliner, beating Boeing by years, only to have their revolutionary aircraft literally break apart in mid-air. But first, if these industrial postmortems fascinate you, subscribe now and smash that like button. The Sinclair story alone involves a vehicle so disastrous it's now a collector's item. Geoffrey de Havilland's company revolutionized aviation repeatedly. The Mosquito, built from balsa wood and plywood, outran German fighters while carrying 4,000-pound bomb loads. Of 7,781 built, Mosquitoes claimed the lowest loss rate of any Allied bomber. The Vampire jet fighter, flying in 1943, pioneered jet aviation, but de Havilland's greatest triumph became its greatest disaster. The Comet, world's first jet airliner, flew paying passengers in 1952, 4 years before Boeing's 707. BOAC's Comets cut London-Singapore flight time from 36 to 24 hours. Orders poured in from airlines worldwide. Britain dominated commercial jet aviation. Then Comets started crashing. January 1954, BOAC, Flight 781 disintegrated near Elba. 2 weeks later, South African Airways Flight 201 crashed after takeoff. April 1954, another BOAC Comet exploded over the Mediterranean. The investigation revolutionized aircraft design. Engineers discovered metal fatigue caused by pressurization cycles. The Comet's square windows created stress concentrations, causing catastrophic failure. David Warren invented the flight recorder, black box, specifically because of Comet crashes. The Royal Aircraft Establishment's investigation, submerging an entire fuselage in water for pressure testing, established methods still used today. De Havilland fixed the problems with the Comet 4, but too late. Boeing's 707, learning from Comet mistakes, captured the market. The last Comet flew commercially in 1981, while 707 variants still fly today. Financial pressure forced de Havilland's 1960 merger into Hawker Siddeley. The company's innovations live on. The Trident pioneered automatic landing systems. The 146 regional jet via British Aerospace became the Avro RJ Bombardier acquired de Havilland Canada, continuing the Twin Otter and Dash 8 lines. The original company vanished, but its DNA persists throughout aerospace. Hatfield, where Comets were built, is now a university campus and shopping centre. Only the runway remains, used occasionally for car storage. Hawker Siddeley represented British aerospace at its zenith. The 1935 merger combined Hawker Aircraft, Armstrong Siddeley, Armstrong Whitworth, AV Rowe, Avro, and Gloucester. This aviation powerhouse produced 14,533 Hurricanes, winning the Battle of Britain. Sidney Cam, their chief designer, created aircraft from the biplane Fury through to the jet-powered Hunter, an unprecedented 35-year span of innovation. The Harrier jump jet, developed from the P-1127 experimental aircraft, achieved what others couldn't: practical vertical takeoff and landing. First flying in 1967, Harriers proved themselves in the Falklands War, shooting down 20 Argentine aircraft without loss in air-to-air combat. The US Marines, recognizing its brilliance, bought 102 AV-8A versions. McDonnell Douglas then improved the design, selling the AV-8B back to Britain. Classic British innovation, American refinement. Beyond military aircraft, Hawker Siddeley built everything. The Trident airliner pioneered automatic landing. The 748 turboprop sold worldwide. Their railway division produced the Intercity 125, Britain's fastest diesel train. The group employed 130,000 people across aviation, nuclear power, and industrial equipment. Annual revenue reached £1.5 billion by the mid-1970s. Government policy killed Hawker Siddeley. The 1957 Defense White Paper, declaring manned fighters obsolete, devastated military aviation. The TSR-2 bomber cancellation in 1965 destroyed years of development. Harold Wilson's Labour government forced Hawker Siddeley's aviation interests into British aerospace in 1977. The remaining industrial divisions continued until 1991, when BTR acquired them. The legacy endures in unexpected places. BAE Systems maintains Hawker Siddeley's heritage. The Nimrod Maritime Patrol aircraft served until 2011. India's Hindustan Aeronautics still builds Hawk trainers under licence. The Harrier finally retired from British service in 2010, victims of defence cuts. Britain now operates F-35Bs from our aircraft carriers, American planes that incorporated Harrier technology. We invented VTOL, perfected it, then gave it away. Clive Sinclair democratised computing for Britain. His ZX80, launched in 1980 for £79.95, £99.95 assembled, made computers affordable. The ZX81 improved the design while cutting prices to £49.95. Then came the ZX Spectrum in 1982. Rubber keys, 16 KB RAM and colour graphics for £125. It created bedroom millionaires and launched Britain's games industry. Matthew Smith wrote Manic Miner in his Liverpool bedroom. It sold 500,000 copies. 5 million Spectrums sold worldwide. The machine's influence was enormous. UK game developers dominated globally throughout the 1990s because teenagers learned programming on Spectrums. Companies like Rare, GoldenEye, DMA Design, Grand Theft Auto, and Core Design, Tomb Raider, traced their origins to Spectrum programmers. Computing magazines sold 500,000 copies monthly. Britain had more computers per capita than any nation. But Sinclair's business model relied on cutting every corner. The Spectrum's keyboard was unusable for serious typing. The power supply generated excessive heat. The edge connector corroded constantly. RAM packs wobbled, crashing programs. While Commodore and Atari built robust machines, Sinclair prioritized cheapness over quality. The QL computer, launched prematurely in 1984 with incomplete software, destroyed business credibility. The C5 electric vehicle became Britain's most mocked invention. Launched January 1985, this plastic tricycle placed drivers at truck exhaust height, offered no weather protection, and required pedalling up hills. Sinclair predicted 200,000 annual sales. Actual sales, 5,000 before liquidation. The £399 price tag could buy a used car. Batteries died after 20 miles. Top speed of 15 miles per hour meant bicycles overtook you. Amstrad bought Sinclair's computer business in 1986 for £5 million. Alan Sugar immediately discontinued development, selling remaining stock. Sinclair continued inventing pocket televisions, folding bicycles, electric wheelchairs, but never recaptured success. He died in 2021, aged 81. His legacy remains complex. Computing revolutionary who democratized technology, but also eccentric inventor whose ambitions exceeded practical reality. Guglielmo Marconi's 1897 company invented the modern connected world. His 1901 transatlantic wireless transmission from Cornwall to Newfoundland revolutionized communication. Marconi equipment saved 700 Titanic survivors. Those ships that responded had Marconi wireless. During World War II, Marconi developed radar systems that detected German bombers, saving Britain from invasion. The company held over 7,000 patents. Post-war Marconi dominated British electronics. They built BBC transmitters, equipped the post office's microwave network, and developed satellite communications. The Marconi EMI television system became the global standard, beating American competitors. By 1990, Marconi employed 40,000 people globally, generating £4 billion revenue. The company seemed unassailable. A British technology giant competing with IBM and Siemens. Then came the catastrophic transformation. Lord Simpson, appointed CEO in 1996, decided Marconi should become an American-style telecoms equipment company. He sold the profitable defence division to British Aerospace for £7.7 billion. Then spent £4.1 billion acquiring two American telecoms companies, 4Systems and Reltec, at the peak of the dot-com bubble. When the bubble burst in 2001, these companies became worthless overnight. The collapse was spectacular. Share price fell from £12.50 to 4 pence. Market capitalisation dropped from £35 billion to £98 million. Shareholders lost 99% of their investment. Pension funds holding Marconi as a safe blue chip lost billions. 10,000 employees lost jobs immediately. Thousands more followed. Debt reached £4.3 billion against assets worth £2 billion. The scandal deepened when executive compensation was revealed. Lord Simpson left with a £1 million payoff plus £300,000 annual pension. Other directors received similar packages, while workers got statutory redundancy. Ericsson bought Marconi's assets for £1.2 billion in 2005, ending 108 years of British innovation. The company that invented wireless communication couldn't communicate its own financial disaster until too late. Today's BT traces some heritage to Marconi, but the original company completely vanishes. These 10 companies employed over 600,000 workers at their peak. Their collapse created today's divided Britain, prosperous London versus abandoned industrial towns. The pattern was always identical: brilliant innovation, global dominance, then destruction through incompetence and arrogance. We literally trained our replacements. BSA showing Honda our factories, de Havilland's crashes teaching Boeing about safety. But nostalgia won't rebuild factories. Something indefinable was lost though. Skilled jobs for millions without degrees, apprenticeships, community pride. Most Britons under 40 don't recognise these names anymore. We've forgotten we once built the world's first jet airliner and dominated global manufacturing. If you've enjoyed this journey through Britain's industrial graveyard, hit subscribe and the notification bell for more forgotten stories. Next week, British brands that secretly sold out to foreign owners. Until then, remember, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it, though Britain would need manufacturing left to lose first. Cheers.